All right. Hey, everybody. It's Joel and Mike back again. I'm Joel Sadler, one of your co-hosts, with a background in entrepreneurship and business building. Always been on the personal growth journey for the last probably 20 years. And just, part of my vision and passion is to share learnings along the way. And I'm a big believer that business growth and growth in general is really linked to personal growth. And happiness as well. Happiness is linked to personal growth, and I think I can own that as well, and also see a lot of unhappy people around at times. But I think once we start working on ourselves and reflecting on what's actually going on, some of the keys to happiness actually become available, and it's exceptionally powerful stuff. My co-host is Mike Harris. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Michael Harris. I've been coaching, speaking. I was just trying to work out how many years it was actually, but since 2007, I've been doing some form of coaching, speaking in the area of empowerment, developing sales teams, developing myself, and then really niching into human behavior and studying that for the last 17 years, and having coached hundreds of people now directly and then indirectly thousands through speaking, and feel very blessed to have found a area that I really, really love, which is to empower.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So today we're going to cover the topic of manifesting good stuff in our lives, and getting clarity between what we want, getting clarity of what we want versus, I suppose, focusing on what we don't want. I think there's two or three really key points to that. The first one is actually, first of all, being really clear on what we do want in order to be able to manifest it. Often people see situations that come up in their lives, negative situations, and they get, well, I know from a fact in the past, get sort of stuck on that. But what I'm really...
Lost your sound there for a second, you just cut out.
Oh, okay. What I was just saying is part of the learning I've had around manifesting is actually being clear on what I want as one of the first steps, being really clear on what I actually want to manifest. And I think it's good to sort of start with a bit of an explanation of what manifesting is. Obviously, manifesting is bringing into reality our life experiences. I think we're both big believers, I know for sure I am, that I control elements of my destiny, and what I think about, I bring about. Mm-hmm. If I think about a negative topic, I'm only going to attract more of that negative energy and more of that experience. If I think about something positive or material, spiritual, whatever it might be, I'm going to attract more of that into my life. I've tested this myself. I think, I can say that I've tested and proven this method myself. I'm quite skeptical about a lot of these things, but I've definitely tested this and proven it to be real in my own life, to the point where literally something will at times turn up within an hour or 2 hours. It's quite phenomenal how fast it can do. Something can manifest, if the intention is powerful enough. So coming back to the key point though, about realizing what the heck it is that we want to manifest and versus not manifest, I think what I'm learning in life is that the things that come up that I don't like, it's really actually powerful, or a powerful way for me to look at it is go, well, actually, I don't like that. So what actually is it that I want? And I can see more and more people that I'm, connecting with around at the moment getting triggered by things. And you can just see it on social media, people getting triggered all over the place, and really expanding so much energy on those triggers and those conversations and those situations, where something that I've started doing is going, well, okay, there's a bit of a trigger there. That's fine. It's something that I don't want. What is it that I do want? What am I going to expand my energy on creating something or speaking about something more positive that's going to have a more positive impact on my happiness at the end of the day, and those around me. So that's sort of the first piece, I think, isn't it? It's getting really clear about what we want and what we don't want, and some of those distinctions.
Yeah, for sure. And if we look at that too, we've obviously got our conscious mind, which is what we're aware of that we're thinking. And we have our subconscious mind, which we are unaware of, which is really driving the majority of what's actually happening for us, and that we're kind of magnetized to what the subconscious is looking for, or what it knows, what it understands. And so often as well, if you look at people trying to manifest, or they're trying to get away from something, they're fearful of something, they are focused on the very thing that scares them. So for example, let's just use an example here, that I'm afraid my partner's going to cheat, or I'm afraid my relationship's going to fall apart. And so they then ended up feeding a lot of energy into that particular fear. And because they're giving attention to that particular thing, that's where the energy flows, because wherever we place attention, energy goes. And so even though they're going, well, I don't want that, they are actually driving and creating the very thing that they're not wanting. And they're therefore manifesting that, because that's where their attention and intention is going. So what happens when this takes place is it's really important. Say, for example, if you find yourself, why do I keep attracting this situation? Why do I keep doing this? It's because you've got such a fear around it, or such a, what I'd call a charge, like a charged particle. You have an emotional charge to that thing. By getting away from it, instead of actually getting away from it, you bring it about. And so what's important first to deal with these types of things is to actually put it on the table. What is this thing I'm fearful of? And actually acknowledge it and bring it into the conscious, like into the conscious mind, and go, what is this that I'm afraid of? And then allow yourself to fully feel into and experience what would happen if that outcome was to take place. Now, a lot of people go, well, why would I want to do that? The reason you want to do that is you're bringing it from the dark to the light, and you're acknowledging it. And then if you allow yourself to fully feel it, it helps expand the nervous system to actually handle that situation. And then once you've done that and felt into it and felt what that worst case scenario could be, you then can neutralize that. And this is the key part, by then asking, well, if that was to happen, what would be the benefits to me? How would this serve me? And what would be some of the upsides, the positives that would come if this was to happen? And when you truly then balance that out, because until that point, it's polarized. Therefore, you're seeing it as like the worst thing ever. It's all one-sided. You're unconscious of the upsides, and you're only conscious of the downsides if this thing was to take place. Therefore, that's the ruling that it has over you. Once you balance those perceptions out and you neutralize it, it's no longer running the show. Because if it was to happen, you don't have that emotional charge you had, because you've seen both sides of that particular outcome. Therefore, you've released yourself from the subconscious hold of that. And now it's easier to stay focused and have your attention on the very thing that you're wanting to go toward, versus the thing you're trying to get away from and actually bring it about.
Far out. That's powerful. And what's really interesting is how, looking back to another podcast that we spoke about, where we talked about nature, nurture, and in the womb. So obviously the fact that, I think, was it what was that word? Epigenetics. Yeah. Where we inherit, via our ancestors, multiple traumas and ways of being, that have been passed down the generations. And then we're modeled also ways of being in, for example, relationships, modeling from our parents is our experience in the womb. So already when we start, for example, using that relationship, situation you mentioned about, already as we start engaging in that space, we are playing out, or we're programmed to play out, as Freud mentioned, as you were talking about it on the last podcast, we're actually programmed to play out or repeat these type of cycles. And so you've got this kind of baseline or subconscious way of being playing out.
Like a computer program, the subconscious program. It's like a program that's programmed into you, whether you like it or not. That's just in there. And Freud termed it compulsion repetition is the term.
Compulsion repetition,
coined it.
So with that there, how can you not manifest stuff related, outcomes related to those tapes or that programming, right?
From being dark to
getting
light.
in, switching out the programming has a massive impact on manifestation by default, right? Which is pretty cool. Think about that, because I've found it quite interesting. Is like without doing some of the inner work, I've used visualization, manifestation, seeding, all of these different techniques to bring stuff about which work. However, they don't, it's almost like I don't know, I can't explain obviously how it works, but it's like an external outworking where coming back and doing the work internally, I feel a lot more at peace. Like I'm
Just
not
an
just trying to
example of
use
one
a
that
tool,
give us an example of something that, because what you've just said is 100% right, like having visualizing and creating the intention, because the three things that we can control, which I think I may have mentioned before, was your perceptions, your thoughts, and therefore your actions or behavior. Those are the things you can control. However, there's unconscious motives that we're not aware of that are also running the show. So when you visualize and you create in your mind's eye a picture or an outcome you're wanting, that's definitely one of the first pieces of manifesting, right? That's an outcome that you're after, and you hold that. When you connect your mind and your heart, and they both have the intention connected to achieve that, that's when you have power. If it's just in the mind or just in the intellect and you're trying to get something and it's not connected to heart, it doesn't have the same power and drive to achieve it. Just the same as if you create a goal or an intention of a visualization that you're trying to get, that's not really in alignment with you as a human, as a person and as a soul, then you're not going to get that either. And that's conflicting. So this is why head and heart have to both be connected truly to the intention of what you're wanting. Then when it's in alignment with you, you've got way more chance of actually manifesting it because it's really in alignment. So give us an example of one. Give us an example of one of yours that you feel that you've been in alignment with and that you visualized and you brought about.
Oh, 100%. I can tell you now. And what's interesting is that's the piece I was grappling with, and I still am understanding how it works. But the heart piece to me, with the head and the heart being connected, is when things manifest reasonably quickly in my life. The heart part is where some of those tapes play, though, where I'm externally trying to manifest something like that, but my heart, there might be tapes going, oh, actually, you're not good enough for that, or really? But what if this happens? So the heart isn't congruent or aligned with the head because of some trauma or tapes going on there. But when it's aligned, it's super quick. Like a couple of examples. So first of all, the house that we live in here in New Zealand now, we were moving and I had a heavily pregnant wife. I had a young daughter who was 3 at the time, and we just had to find a place to live basically. And I was strongly intent. I got 3 stories, actually really powerful stories. You'll love the second one. So I wanted a place to stay, right? And we were talking with each other. We just need a place to come down and to nest in and to settle down back in this area, have our children for a few years. And it sort of felt like a 2, 3, 4 year period. And we were looking around at homes, and there's so much powerful intent there. The heart was, I need a place as a provider for my family, to look after my family. Manifestation or head part was, I want it to be nice. I want it to have a view, because we came from a house that had a view. So it had to feel nice and open, and I wanted a place I could work from home as well. Anyway, we found this place. It's got an office built in it. It's got a view out in the backyard. It's in the area we wanted to be in. And guess what? We're on a street in Maori language, which is part of New Zealand. And guess what the street name means? The Nest.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
So we live on a street that says the Nest. We're nesting,
nice.
We're manifesting. We wrote our list down. We basically manifested, exactly what we needed at the time.
Right down to the name of where you're going to
be.
be.
Even better. Yeah, even to the name. I almost fell off my chair.
And you can't say that's just a coincidence.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a coincidence. No, 100%. Second one was getting pregnant. So during lockdowns and all that sort of stuff, there was a lot of fear.
A lot of people got pregnant during lockdowns.
A lot of people got pregnant, but I went down the rabbit's burrow as you can do, and I was kind of like, hell no, am I bringing another child into this screwed up world, right? Like, it was just a mess. The world was a mess, and like, I was thinking, where is this going? Just getting pretty like lockdowns and dystopian, and like, what the heck, And so we couldn't get pregnant, right? Because I didn't want to bring a child.
You were trying damn hard, though. We were trying. You're like, we'll have a kid, but secretly you're like, no, we're not going to. I just want to keep trying.
Yeah, I was trying. I was enjoying trying, but But then I surrendered and made peace with that. And then I visualized, manifested, flipped my mindset, just relaxed, and manifested, wrote down little baby boy, grateful for it, saw him, visualized him, bang, we got pregnant within a week or two, literally. And it was a boy, and I gave birth to him, and I caught him in the car on the way to the hospital, so
That's right. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, but that was such a powerful one for me.
Just
right?
go into that
Literally.
just for a second, just to show you how resourceful you are. This is a pretty cool story, just to expand on that a little bit. So you don't have to go into all the detail, but you obviously didn't make it to the hospital, and you had to deliver your baby boy.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Oh, it was pretty amazing. There was some pretty intense circumstances around here as well. It was during all the lockdowns and mandates and bits and pieces here, and the birthing unit where we were at, a whole lot of nurses had just left, I think, because they were mandated out of their work and stuff. And it was, I didn't know, but I was told afterwards, quite an emotional time. I think a child had passed on, or something had happened that day that we were heading in.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he decided to come in the car. Maybe he knew, I don't know. But I pulled over, and my wife was screaming, he's coming, he's coming. I sort of thought, oh, yeah, we're nearly there, hon. I thought I better have a look, So we pulled over and had a look, and sure enough, this head was starting to pop out, like come squeeze out, So I was like, holy moly. So managed to get her in a comfortable position. Then he literally did all the work. She did all the work. Sorry. She did the work and he did the work. I just caught him, and held him, and managed to stay postured, and present
and conscious.
Yeah. Caught him, flipped him over, cleared his airways out, gave him a rub. He started crying, which was great. Put him on mum, wrapped him in a blanket, and all the stuff you see in a movie. It's funny, Like I knew what to do from watching him film. No training or whatever.
Just went into get it done mode, into survival mode, into resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And, when you're under those extreme pressures like that, it's amazing how you can perform, when you have to rise to the occasion. You have no choice.
Exactly.
You just have to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a couple of situations where head and heart were really well and truly connected. A third one, which is quite interesting, and this probably leads into the next part of our conversation, is around doing a bit of work, though, like trusting the universe to provide opportunities as a result of focused manifesting. But for example, at the moment, we're thinking about going to Japan to live for a while, and the price, from what I can originally find, the price of actually renting a place, each month is quite substantial. So for the time period we're there, we could actually buy a small place potentially in Japan, like in a lot of not semi-rural properties are quite affordable at the moment, because a lot of people have moved into urban areas.
Mm-hmm.
So the prices of property in rural areas are quite affordable to purchase. And so anyway, I was looking into that side of things, and again, it was for me family related. So again, that heart part, and then the head I'm good at. Mm-hmm. And I knew there was a model there. Maybe I could buy a place. Maybe we could then Airbnb it or rent it out and create an income from it. And I just sort of scratching the surface. But what was really interesting is I was sending that intent out, and I've actually been talking about it to people for about 6 months. I've actually been really manifesting it and just talking about it and planting those seeds, and then literally I thought, okay, I've got to do a bit of work here, bit of research, because we've got to take action, do the research, do the mahi or the work, which, actually put some sweat, blood and tears in. Mm-hmm. And within about 2 hours, I'd come across a seminar that was literally held 3 weeks ago by a woman with the keys or information on exactly how to do what I want to do over there, which is essentially buy a small holiday home, have it generate an income to cover our travel costs once a year, and lease it out as well and have it managed for me, like it's there. But what I mean, that's kind of what I mean about getting really clear on what you want from a heart point of view. And then the head part to me means actually going and doing a bit of work, looking around, exploring, investing a bit of time and energy, to kind of grab the opportunity that's there, because I could have just sort of sat there and talked about it and never done anything about it and gone, oh yeah, whatever, and fluffed around and just ended up going and staying at an Airbnb, Mm-hmm. But there's some sort of actual work part that's got to be done.
Yeah, totally. And I think this is where The Secret, a lot of people have watched The Secret. which was really, created for the masses. And
Mm,
I thought it was amazing. Had some great content in there. But some of the stuff it didn't quite cover was the need for action, was the need for alignment and action. And so
yeah.
you had a lot of people that watched it and just said, oh, if I just think about and manifest like $1 million coming into my bank or whatever, a check arriving in the mail, but without actually putting any work or any effort or action into it,
Yeah.
the universe is not going to reward just idle, just sitting manifestation. You have to put action and intention behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's just a fantasy, so a lot of
100%.
people then didn't understand that. But what you've just clearly explained is, yes, you've got to have the intention first. You've really got to be aligned to it. And then you've got to actually put the work in order to achieve it.
Yeah.
And I think I chatted about this with you yesterday. As you look at even what we're doing with this channel and expanding this out, you can see how many podcasts or channels there are. There's like now thousands and thousands or millions or whatever there is. There's shitloads compared to like, if you look at where Joe Rogan, for example, first started his, I think we looked it up. It was like 2009. And you see the size of that now and go, damn, like that's a massive podcast and been around a long time. But to get anything off and running takes time. And so part of the algorithm of success, for example, with a channel is, you've got to give value, and you've got to be aligned and have a calling to want to share what you want to share, like we feel we have here. But then it's the time, like you've got to put the time in, and part of that reward program for this to get it successful is putting the time in without seeing any definitive result or massive expansion first. And therefore you've got to go through the challenge of your own internal dialogue and still showing up even when you feel like there's not a massive audience or things are not growing as quickly as you can. It's that consistency. And when you look at that consistency and that intention that's aligned to head and heart and the focus of it and giving value, part of that equation is just time. And that's how you then build a successful channel, for example. Same as if you look at the algorithm or the program, we'll call it, on how to find what you did with the real estate. You had to have the intention, had to be aligned to head and heart. You had to then manifest the idea of what you wanted, but then you still had to put the action in place. And for you, then it was going online, searching around, really clear. And lo and behold, you found a solution to then take you the next step for you to action.
100%, man. And like the action part, you mentioned the universe rewards action. Like I think big time, like for me, the action's linked to faith. And I don't mean faith or trust or surrender. I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean like just going, okay, stepping out of my comfort zone, taking the action, and now I just trust and surrender that this feels right from a heart point of view. I'm going to quieten my mind down now, because obviously, I'm quite a conservative character, and by that I mean I analyze all the risks. I analyze both sides, I believe, quite in a balanced way. So I do see the risks. I'm not one of those people that kind of just jumps in. I definitely see the risks, and they do confront me. Like, for example, just going to Japan, I think I shared with you, I don't know, this sounds ridiculous, but it took me like an hour and a half just sitting there to buy the tickets. And what came up for me at that time was a feeling of overwhelm. Like when I buy these tickets, which is a reasonable investment for a family of 4, that it's the go time.
You
know what I mean? And so what came
up
for me was like, he pulled the trigger, was like, oh, like I haven't got accommodation sorted. Like I work for myself from home. How are we going to make that work? We've got the 2 kids there, and we've got to get a car. So like all of the practical stuff as a guy that comes up that I kind of, most of it have to take responsibility for making happen, kind of was confronting, But what was really interesting, as soon as I bought those tickets, within a day, like the next day, we'd found this place that did accommodation. We'd found that there was a school that, because normally in Japan, you can't just check your kids into a school. They have to be enrolled for a year and all that sort of stuff. So it's quite a process, but we found an international type hybrid school that could be work for our kids. And something else, I can't remember what it was now, but it was almost like that stuff was just sitting there. It was just sitting there. As soon as I pushed to play, it's like, that broke and it just dropped on our laps. And we were just kind of like, what the heck? Where did that come from? Like it was just sitting there waiting. The universe had lined it up from that attention. As soon as we took action, stepped out in faith, everything's just sort of now rolling
And your
forward,
reticular activator, which
Mm,
is part of the brain, which is
mm,
looking for the familiarity or looking for things that you've got your attention on,
mm.
then you start to see and find these things as well. So
Exactly. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
definitely kicks in too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if I look
Mm.
back at one of the big ones that I have done, it was when I was building a direct selling company back in my 20s, and I
Yeah.
had this big goal of hitting a certain level, and I had to get a certain amount of sales volume through my organization,
Mm.
and it was like a very lofty goal, and I had this vision, and I
Mm.
visualized it every day. I put myself into a state, a very high vibrational state, by listening to music.
Mm.
This is something else I really recommend doing, because if you can change your state and really raise your vibration and the emotion behind that and invest
Mm.
it into that visualization, it's so much more powerful.
Mm.
And so I'd do this daily, and I saw this, like these volumes on my screen, and I had this picture of me sitting in my office, and I would watch myself in my visualization sitting there.
Mm.
And then I'd put myself into the state and the emotion of what I was going to feel once I had achieved it.
Yeah.
And I'd attach that feeling to it, and I'd see myself celebrating and seeing the volume that I needed. And,
Mm. Mm.
on that exact day that I'd set that intention, it happened. And I was literally sitting in my office at the computer when I
Wow.
saw it, just like I'd visualized. And what was really interesting is that when I got that and achieved it, it was almost like bittersweet, because I was like, I knew I was going to get this. And so there was a not of like, wow, this is amazing. It was like, yeah, that was there, but it was like, oh, yeah, okay. I knew this was going to happen. And it was like this kind of knowingness that kicked in, and it was almost an anticlimax. And
Mm.
what that taught me as well was to celebrate. It was to acknowledge that this is the key to achieve and to create new things, and just to celebrate that aspect, not so much just the goal itself, but celebrating the
Mm.
fact that I'd had an intention and I utilized
Mm.
these principles to make this thing happen. And that was the real reward. And
Mm.
it showed me too that you need to then have something else that you're working towards. Otherwise, that deflation or
Mm.
feeling like, well, I've got there now, then what? And so
Mm.
it's really
Yeah.
important to have a natural progression of whatever it is that you're wanting to create and manifest. So
100%.
yeah, so that was a
That's a
really strong one I had.
yeah, that's awesome.
You know,
That
and just on
mm.
that too, I think we touched on it before, but we're manifesting every day, all day anyway. It's just whether we're conscious of it or not, whether we're manifesting subconsciously by these programs and things we have running us, or fears that we haven't acknowledged,
Mm.
or we consciously then choose
Mm.
to manifest what we want. But either which
Mm.
way, all
Mm.
of us are manifesting in our lives every day, creating our own reality every day.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah. It's quite phenomenal, really, when you stop and think and go, I'm going to bed tonight. I could literally get up tomorrow and do anything I want. In theory, I
Yeah.
could jump on a plane. I could sell my house. I could go for a swim. Like, it's often I feel I forget how powerful that actually is. It's
The
actually an
power of choice, like
extremely
reminding yourself. Yeah.
powerful,
The power of 24
mm,
hours, of what you can
mm,
actually do in 24 hours, or a whole
yeah,
new clean slate each day, and what you
mm,
can actually
mm,
achieve with that day. And you bring up a really interesting point. I like what you just said. I could go for a swim. I could get on a plane. I could sell my house.
mm,
100%. And some people may be sitting there going, "What, you wouldn't do that?" Or I couldn't do that because I have a job to go to, or I have this to do. Yeah, but the point is that you could, and I'm not saying that anyone should do this, but you could
mm.
quit your job and find something else. You
Yeah.
could choose to get up earlier before your job and go for a swim or a run, or you could go and buy a pet, or you could, whatever it is that you want. You're
Mm,
right. Like
mm,
you have a blank slate, but we create these confinements in our own mind about what we can
mm,
and can't do, or our limiting possibilities. When
mm,
in actual fact, again, if you get in touch with yourself and
mm,
truly desire something, you can recreate and change your reality, and
mm,
begin that by taking a action step
mm.
in one day that's taking you in a different direction, different timeline.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I encourage people listening to take those actions and make those decisions to step outside their comfort zone. Like for me, a big one years ago was working for myself. And I suppose for me, it was a little bit maybe easier to do because I saw my grandfather and father do it. They all ran their own businesses. So it was kind of modeled to me in a way. However, I had a job and I did the 9 to 5 thing and all that as well. But I really just enjoy being my own boss. I really enjoy being the master of my own destiny in my income space, and some people probably the other side where they just enjoy being paid, having a paycheck, which is fine. I suppose the part that I feel though has taught me from being responsible and earning my own income is actually the freedom to step out of my comfort zone. Like, I think once you start doing it, and I mean, it could be in anything. I suppose the point is once you start doing it small steps, then it becomes less threatening next time to live kind of outside of comfort zone. And magic sort of seems, in my experience, seems to happen in those spaces, and it could be anything. I mean, setting up a podcast, importing some products and starting them online, taking the kids to the zoo, or whatever, where if you're scared of animals or something, I mean, like whatever it is, once you start living in that space, it's quite freeing. I mean, I used to live in Auckland, and this is a real simple one, but like people would say this is Auckland, New Zealand, and the traffic and the road systems there are pretty poor. You can sit in traffic for an hour and a half. And I know that's nothing compared to some big cities around the world where you're sitting there for half a day. But, I used to, everyone would say to me, oh, Auckland, oh, how do you live there with all the traffic and blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of like, well, actually, it's not a problem for me. Like, I just say to my boss, hey, I'm going to start a bit later and leave a bit later, or start earlier and leave earlier. Like, like I was traveling miles to one job for one period of time, and I could have sat in traffic for an hour and a half, but I chose to, travel there in 30 minutes because of just trying something different and just negotiating with the.
Well, you deciding what you want to do for your life and what you want to choose and not choose. And then because you had the intent and then you asked and you created the possibility, it became a reality, and asking for what we want is crucial. It's also, if we look at this too, being mindful of what we put into our vision, what we see, the environment, the conversations we're having with people, who we're surrounding ourselves with, and what we're watching or listening to. All this stuff is really important in regards to what we're manifesting, because remember, everything goes into the subconscious. The subconscious picks up, stores everything. The conscious mind only holds a small part of that information, but we pick up everything. And for example, if you're watching or having conversations around scarcity all the time or not having enough, guess what you're going to continue to bring about? You're going to have the fear and the conversation around not having enough, because that becomes your reality because you're speaking it into existence. And I was talking to someone yesterday about watching horror movies. Like this person I was chatting to had been watching this horror series, and it was freaking them out, and it'd been bringing them into a really horrible state. And it's like, well, you're literally traumatizing yourself, and then you're bringing those images and those feelings into your reality, and then living that out, having these twisted thoughts. So watch the movies that you watch the stuff you listen to, the podcasts you listen to, or the music you listen to, even, because that's all having an impact on your being. And if we look at, I believe horror movies as an example, we could say we all like them. It gives us an adrenaline hit and we get freaked out and all the rest of it, but it's traumatizing as hell. And I think that this stuff is all put out intentionally to keep people in a low vibrational state, if you look at it. And I look at the controllers, whoever you want to say they are, they have a lot of stuff they put into movies, and it's called pre-predictive programming, and way back, the CIA had to admit in court that they were utilizing TV and things to basically control the masses and to put things into them. So I see a lot of stuff that's come out in movies, and a lot of you may have too now as well, that seems to have come to fruition, lo and behold. So there's a lot of stuff that we've been watching, genres of movies, of things. For example, I can think of one particular genre for a long time that came out, and that was around viruses that would come out and do things. It was like heaps of movies that did that. Well, what happened a few years ago, I look at that, and it's like what pre-predictive programming is, and this is how powerful the mind is, and whatever we're thinking about and feeling, we're bringing about. So you think about this from a collective conscious standpoint. If you wanted to control the masses, you would want to control their minds, right? And you'd want them to be diving into and energetically investing in whatever outcome you were trying to drive. And so when you look at a lot of this pre-predictive programming, what they've done is put these things in place, and we can go, oh my God, I've watched movies about all this. Well, here it is. And the reason why they all do this is to bring a timeline about and consciously create that outcome through manipulating the masses to get all that energy and creative energy to bring their outcomes through. And also it lowers our barrier to entry, our barrier to accept these things when they do come, because we're familiar with it and we've seen it, we understand, oh, this is familiar. And so that's what pre-predictive programming is. And so when you look at this, we're all programmed. We either consciously program ourselves or we unconsciously get programmed by whoever has more will and more intent than what we do in order to shape our lives. So my message is like, why not consciously create and be very mindful about what you plug in and what you're investing your attention and energy into?
Yeah, 100%, man. Like that what you just said is so powerful and has been a massive, powerful element in my life. So I did some of John Kehoe's work and even before that, but John says something quite interesting. He says that, either you plant your own garden. So he talks about the mind as a garden. Either you plant what you want in your garden. If you want carrots, then put carrot seeds in. If you want corn, put corn seeds in, and then you water it and you tend it and you pull the weeds out.
Yeah.
And if you don't plant your own garden, someone else is going to plant it.
Yeah.
Right. And
I remember that too, man. John Kehoe's Mind Power is one of the first, that Mind Power book of his was fantastic.
Yeah.
And that garden analogy you just shared was exactly, that was one of the key takeaways for me when I read that many years ago.
Oh, it's and I see it all the time. And I think part of this internal work is like pulling those weeds out. Is like reflecting on stuff we don't want and then working on it and pulling the weeds out and stuff like that. And like the other key thing I was going to say, like I made a decision 10, 15 maybe years ago to just stop watching telly. And at the time I was kind of like, whoa, this is quite a big decision. But I unplugged the TV aerial and I haven't watched TV since.
Yeah.
And I just chopped it. And I'm like, I'm not going to waste my time watching some bullshit like drama or thing of some fictional character play out in my life, for one, because I saw the impact it was having on an ex-partner and some of the stuff that was playing. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what happened there? I was just doing that like on this show. And I'm like, what? Like literally it just kind of freaked me out.
Well, you look at this, man, drama sells, right? So you talked about the horrors and that and those thrills and frights that gets people pumped, but drama sells. People love drama. So then if they're then manifesting, what are they then like? What's the norm for them to how to live and how to be is drama.
Yeah.
And this is where many people sit in that whole victimhood, pointing the finger outside of themselves, because that's what they've been demonstrated through the shit that they're 100%.
Watching. Yeah. Like you go to a cafe, like I just observe when I go to a cafe and have a coffee and the number of, I suppose, complaining or negative conversations around me is quite interesting. And I'm not, I suppose I am judging, but I'm kind of, what I'm saying is I'm sort of observing and going, why is that playing out? And I think to your point, it's because we turn on the telly or it's the internet now or whatever it is. And it's just, if you were kind of to grade what we're watching or listening to on an emotional level scale, most of it would be below zero, right?
Yeah,
anger, frustration, resentment, wars,
and look
poverty,
look at the music that a lot of young kids are watching, which is highly sexualized now. And for a lot of these young rappers in America, it's all around money, woman, cars, and like creating these kind of fantasies and these very superficial kind of lifestyles that then a lot of kids think that that's what they need to aspire towards. So there's so many elements and demographics that are getting affected by certain things that have been put out. And I believe in order to govern those demographics, and you brought up something earlier that, with what we've been through in the last 3 years and how a lot of people that were awake to, say, if there was an agenda that was going on, they were awake to it, but they were living in fear. And so therefore, and they're getting frustrated with that and worried about what could happen. And therefore, as I pointed out at the start, bringing about or helping to bring about the very thing they don't want, because that's what they're focusing on, instead of getting clear on what do we want our life and new systems to look like what do we want to step into, what part do I want to play to add value to this world and empower people and to create a new reality. And so that's a really important distinction to focus on the very thing we want versus focusing on what we don't want. And I talked about the energetics behind that and why that is at the start. So I won't go over that again, but it's really important. I will cover it real quick, actually. If there is a fear, if there is something that you're trying to get away from, you have to first just own it and acknowledge it. You've got to go, okay, this is the thing I'm afraid of. First, just like fully sit with it. Feel into that very thing. Feel what it would be like to experience it and what you'd see and smell and all the sensations that would come with it if it was to happen. And then if that was to happen and it was your worst case and you're highly polarized by it, which means you've just seen it as a terrible thing, flip it on its head and start to ask yourself, well, if that worst case was to happen, how would it help me? How would it benefit me? What would be the positives? And then really neutralize, like sit and neutralize that so that it doesn't govern you anymore. That if it was to happen, you're not attached to it so much. It's not scaring you so much. You're not so polarized by it. And that's how you liberate yourself from the fear aspect, so you can then focus on what it is you do wish to create and the outcomes that you want to have. So really, really important that.
Oh, heck yeah. It's so powerful. And I think the world, if we just say, look back, as we've mentioned, a couple of years to the lockdown time and all that, and the kind of trauma, I think that whole experience created on humanity, everyone's got a story of some shape or form around how they managed it, or how they self-medicated with alcohol through it, and how they managed to work and couldn't handle the kids, and how mandates came through and caused more divisions in society. I think I think that that's actually been a major moment in history that has really sort of shaken humanity. And I can see, I don't know if evolution is the right word, but I can see people evolving around me, and just, it's been quite a powerful external factor, if you want to say, to really kind of shake people's worlds up.
100% had to happen. Like, because there were systems and things controlling people for a long time. Like, we've been in it. We just hadn't seen it as clearly as we can now, because it wasn't brought to the forefront to the same degree. And here's another piece just on that, as we talk about the last 3 years and the lockdowns, etc. I remember very vividly, like, having the lens that I look through when I see stuff is always through behavior and what intentions are by the very people that are doing what they're doing. And so when you're watching I think it was a 1 o'clock update, a 4 o'clock update, and a 6 o'clock update every day, and they were anchoring in these little sounds, these little kind of sounds that came with the updates, and everyone that's in the mainstream sitting there on anticipation on the edge of their seats. What's the update going to be now? Oh goodness, how many cases and what's going to happen? And the fear that was just pumped into people intentionally. They knew exactly what they were up to. Because
I didn't watch them.
I would tune into them sometimes, but I started to get frustrated because I knew what they were doing. So I would turn off as well. But I also wanted to know from an unattached place of not living in fear of what they were telling me, just to understand where they were guiding the masses, where they were trying to take us. So, you'd watch it and you go, oh, this is what's going to happen next, because they're literally telling you what's going to happen. So, but that fear, when people are in fear, this is what I was talking about before. Actually, this is a great example, a real life example. When you're in fear, you've lost your rational mind. You've lost your rational mind. You've lost logic, and therefore you are compelled to do things from fear. And from a survival standpoint, and you can't always think clearly like that. And so you had a lot of people making decisions and throwing themselves into situations and taking experimental things because they were in so much fear. They weren't using their rational mind to discern what was happening. And so that fear on a mass scale, on a mass consciousness scale, helped create the very outcome that these people were driving. And so that's the power of fear. So that's exactly links back to what we were talking about with fear before, creating the very outcome that you don't want because you're giving your attention and energy to it.
Yeah. And fear is such a powerful driver, isn't it? Like,
massively.
You look back at all of the things that played out, during that time. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if you could see fear on a light spectrum scale, or if you could actually see it physically and on a frequency scale or something. It'd be interesting to see how that spiked around the world, and or different countries, during that time,
as the
and how
outcomes that
it
were
up and
created.
down, and yeah, because in my
Yeah.
game with marketing, I can track data, and spikes and public PR,
Mm.
releases and billboards or whatever, spike traffic and stuff, campaigns, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think that's I think bringing it back to that heart and head point,
Yeah.
and that point of faith and surrender when an external force as large as that, like, don't get me wrong, like I definitely, I buried my head in the sand for a couple of weeks. I lost some clients instantly with lockdowns and stuff like that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is too much, and just sort of ignored what was going on. And then I came out again. I was kind of like, okay, again, I've got to make things happen because I've got to pay the bills, right? So
Yeah.
that was, I was just focused on getting more clients, and we did, and we managed to trade through it and all that sort of stuff successfully. But I definitely bought into elements of the fear, not so much the kind of fear around COVID itself, but like, where is this going? Where is
Yeah.
this erosion of our rights, I suppose, being forced lockdown and vaccine
Yeah.
mandates and all this sort of stuff? Where is this kind of going was my main sort of fear. All of a
I was on
sudden,
board with you on that.
yeah, all
That
of a
was,
sudden, well, I mean, I did and I could, but technically, legally, I couldn't leave my home and do what I'd normally do, things. So, that's
well,
quite
not legally. Legally, you could do it. It was all a facade. But anyway,
yeah,
they
but
wanted us to think we legally
yeah,
couldn't.
yeah, but you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? We're like, literally,
Yeah.
our society overnight was flipped upside down. But if you stop and really think about it, like, if I had chosen to go and live bush or go and camping on a mountain or somewhere, no one would have known. I would have
No.
just been about my daily life, fishing, looking, playing with the kids or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it's all a construct. It's all a
It is all a
mental
construct.
construct,
It's all in
isn't it?
here. Hence all the
Crazy.
information that was being
Yeah, yeah,
pumped.
yeah, yeah.
And so what you've just defined is a really good
Mm,
example of, you control your environment completely. Let's say go into a cabin somewhere
mm.
with no Wi-Fi, no cellular
Yeah,
coverage, whatever, no TV.
yeah.
And your family's safe. You can eat,
Mm,
sleep, you can
mm,
hunt, do whatever you want.
mm,
Completely different reality than being
mm,
plugged into a
mm,
system that's
mm.
like pumping fear porn all the time. You would have had a completely different experience in reality at that
Mm.
point.
Well, no, I heard that there were countries around the world like that, and other
Yeah.
where society was just carrying on like normal, and also other stories where people do come, back from a trip or whatever, and they're like, oh, what's been happening, sort of thing, and then all of a sudden they walk into this situation. Like, it's just, yeah, it was just a really interesting time for humanity, and I think I actually look at it now as a really positive time, not the deaths and all of that part of it. Quote me now, I think that's part of it's horrific. However, the positive side of that sort of traumatic experience and what we all went through is enough to really kind of shake people and go, actually, there are other possibilities. I worked from home. Actually, maybe I do want to work from home, and it's cool now because now I can go to the gym during
Yeah.
the day. I can walk my dog, and I'm
Yeah.
feeling better
Yeah.
about that part of it. I enjoyed the time with my kids, and there's so many kind of positive elements I feel that have come out of it. And also people pushing back, more on systems and structures and going, well, I didn't like that, what happened, so I don't want that to happen again, so I'm going to do this instead.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna
this has been a big wake up,
mm,
what that all
mm,
that's transpired, because as you touched on, you and I both went through a time
mm.
of fear too.
Yeah, yeah.
I went through it because I could see what they
Mm,
were trying to
mm,
bring about and what was going to happen. So there was a lot of fear there for a while. And then when you come through that, you're like, okay, there's this kind of knowingness and embodiment now of,
mm,
as I touched on before, what do we want to do? What do we want to
mm,
create? What is it we want to bring into the world with this? And now
mm, mm,
focusing on the outcomes that we want and the type of systems, relationships,
mm, mm,
businesses,
mm.
structures that are around us that we want to have, that are about empowering versus disempowering.
Yeah.
And so now it's really shifted for me and for a lot of others I speak to around that, again, having that
Mm.
focus on the outcome we want versus being fearful and trying to get away
100%.
from something that
Mm,
we don't want. It's actually just to
mm,
really embrace the change and
mm,
where we want
mm.
to head.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.